Like the fact that I literally quit this job because of them and to this, like thinking about this now is like giving me the hive. I have not thought about this in a very long time.
Hello, clowns.
I'm Ami.
I'm E10, and we're the hosts of Clown Vibes Podcast.
We're just two best friends who get together to laugh and discuss a variety of topics.
From all things pop culture to navigating through adulthood as Asian Americans and more with our very own clown spin, of course.
We're so glad to have you here to clown around with us, and we really hope you enjoy the episode. So today we're going to talk about toxic coworkers. I'm sure everyone and their mom has had one.
Or you're the toxic coworker. Surprise.
Or you need to look internally and really assess your behavior. And this is the episode to explain what it is. So, Yu-Chen, what is a toxic coworker?
All right, this is my own definition of a toxic coworker, but let me know if you disagree. Basically, It's someone who displays unnecessarily rude behavior. They're not really always outright about it. Sometimes it can be really indirect. They may be a little passive aggressive or flat out aggressive, but keyword is that the behavior is just unnecessary in a productive work environment. And we're not talking about someone who just had a one-off day, they're just feeling icky that day and they're a little bit mean. They've had multiple instances throughout a period of time that you've worked with them, and they may have a reputation for this.
Okay. I like it. I think that makes sense. It's pretty much anything that is too much.
Yeah. And obviously it may differ by what your tolerance level is. I think I have a somewhat higher tolerance level than maybe you do. But it's very scenario based. And yeah, do you think you're the toxic coworker, first off?
I don't, but I could be lying to myself. My coworkers actually listen to this podcast. So if you're my coworker listening, let me know. I will adjust my behavior.
But just for context, because I feel like each work environment is slightly different, let's just quickly go over where our work experiences are.
Okay. I worked at two very big accounting firms, the Big Four. So it's 1 million people. And now I work at a smaller startup with I think 800 corporate employees. So much smaller scale now.
And I basically worked in a similar environment to the Big Four. I was in consulting. My first job, moved to a much smaller startup where our headquarters was around 40, 50 people maybe. And now I work somewhere where headquarters, still a startup, but around 150. So all three are just very different work environments.
Yeah.
Similar clown experiences across all, but yeah.
One thing that's consistent is that you'll always have some toxic coworkers.
Yeah. The reason why we had to level set here is because we obviously work in corporate startup environments, which I think very different clownish activities. And if you worked in a retail job or if you worked in a restaurant business, which I know you have.
I have done both.
This is tailored to I think personalities that exist or scenarios that exist in the corporate / maybe startup environment.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So the way that we're going to go through this is we're going to talk about different scenarios that we've each experienced. And we have a little game for this. Okay, so I've kind of come up with 3 different types of personalities. And each time we go through a scenario, the other person is going to kind of classify that toxic coworker. And then at the end, you'll give your perspective of the classification. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah.
All right, so the first one is an annoying fly, and it's pretty self-explanatory. They may not be super intentional or aware. The behavior is typically not malicious at all, and they may not even have gotten specific feedback on their actions, or they may not have gotten it as frequently in order for it to register in their head. They're just, for lack of a better word, just annoying as fuck.
Okay.
And then two, labeling as the office bully. So they're aware of what they're doing, but they don't care to change because it's like probably worked for them in the past, or they just don't give an F. And they are probably, because they're so aware of like how they're acting, they're probably aware of like how to differentiate between like, oh, this is personal, and oh, I just mean business. Like I'm just doing it to get a point across or just to get my work done.
Okay.
And it's usually the latter, like it's usually just not personal.
Okay.
And then three is a catch-all bucket called toxic AF. But basically just avoid this person at all costs. Their behavior is most likely intentional and likely personal. And also, I feel like sometimes when a person is classified in this, they're just going through a power trip, or they're like
Oh, for sure.
insecure and they want to put you down. It's not like productive at all. It's just like completely unnecessary.
Yeah. All right. This will be fun. This will be cathartic.
Is there any bucket that you think is missing?
No, I think that's a good range where people should fall into one. I guess we'll see in our examples if we feel like the person doesn't fall into either or any of the three buckets.
Yeah. Obviously, we don't want to like strip someone or like their scenario and personality down to just a few descriptive words, but
Yeah.
for the purpose of like framing these situations, we're going to just move forward with these three. Okay, I mean, why don't you go first?
Oh God. Okay. All right. I'm going to go in chronological order from my first nemesis to my most recent nemesis. Okay. At my first job, while the firm was really big, the group was extremely small and really up in each other's business. So I think our group in the office was maybe like 15 people who were consistently around. And there were these like three people in the group who were very incompetent, but somehow running everything and had like the most power. And they were just mean. They would like make comments about how emotional I am. And they were actually just dumb. And anytime I would be like, hey, this is wrong, they would not believe me until months and months later when they figured it out themselves. Like there was this one time, me and my like the other consultant analyst, whatever we were called, I can't even remember. We had been saying this one thing for months and months. And then in a meeting, the director was like, oh, hey, this is the thing. And we both just looked at each other. We looked at him and we were like, yeah, we've been saying that. And he was like, no, you haven't. I just thought of it.
Was the director part of the trio?
Yes, he was a part of the trio.
Oh.
And he was the one who was like the worst at making you're so emotional comments. It was, this is very triggering.
I know. As I was prepping for this, I'm like, I'm going to be so triggered right now.
Oh my God. Like, and there's so many stories just like that to where like they're more or less the reason I quit that job and like left because I just didn't want to deal with it anymore. And they just had so much random power because they were really tight with the partner.
Okay. What did they say that was like, oh, you're too emotional? Because I feel like that's not something that you would typically get feedback on.
Basically, like also in their toxic workplace behavior, me and the other analysts were like best friends. And we were both on the same project with them. And they pulled us both into the room and they were like, hey, we can only have one of you going forward. You guys decide who it's going to be. And they like looked straight at me and they were like, don't cry about it. And I was like, we both fucking hate you guys. So you're trying to pin us against each other. And that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
We're literally best friends. And
also,
we're also
what is the
both
purpose
very
of that?
agreeable people. Yeah. What's the purpose of that? They're just trying to instigate stuff. It was basically like us against them. So they were trying to break us up to, I don't know, not have this like dynamic anymore. And by that time I was already quitting. So I honestly like walked out of the room and I was like, dude, I'm so sorry that you have to stay on this project. Like they didn't know I was quitting yet, but like obviously the decision was like not me because I'm leaving.
They thought they would start World War III.
And instead we're still best friends.
Well, the fight is like you guys are both trying to leave. So like who gets to leave?
I think they knew that it was that too, but it was just a series of comments like that. They would either directly look at me and be like, don't cry about this, or be like, no need to get emotional, like whatever. And I don't know, I was so emotional because every day they were just tearing me apart. And it was my first year out of school. Like, I was just like, you guys are so mean to me. And it's you guys that are dumb. Like, I'm actually right because numbers don't lie.
Are they still there?
Yeah, they're still there, thriving. Even though when I left, I made a huge ass fuss about everything and no one gave a shit.
Okay, just based on what you shared, my inkling thought is I'm going to label them as office bullies.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. I feel like they weren't trying to be like, they just thought it was funny, actually, to be mean.
What? Okay, but are they aware?
Well, they should be aware now.
The difference between annoying fly, I think, and office bully is that annoying fly is unaware and office bully is aware and they're doing it intentionally.
Oh, yeah, they were definitely doing it intentionally. I mean, you don't tell someone, don't cry about this in an
Yeah.
annoying way. In an annoying way. Yeah, honestly, in my mind, they're toxic AF. Like the fact that I literally quit this job because of them, and like to this, like thinking about this now is like giving me the hives. Like I have not thought about this in a
Okay.
very long time.
Yeah, I think they will be toxic AF if it's personal, which actually like it sounds
Kind of
like
sounds
it
personal.
is.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
kind of felt personal. I think they knew that I was already kind of telling the other partner what was going on, and I was super close to my like career coach or whatever the fuck they called it. And I would tell him
Mhm.
everything. And he was also a director, so he was like working behind the scenes to try to like pull me out of the situation. So I think everyone knew like I was stirring some like pots like to try to like remove myself from this. So it definitely became personal.
Got it.
I was doing it for self-preservation and they were doing it fucking malicious.
I know. It sucks because most office bullies that I've encountered, I don't know, maybe it's because we're like still very early in our career, but they're usually like levels above us.
Mm-hmm. Don't you have something better to do than
I
like
know.
make an analyst cry? Like, just leave me alone.
All right, what's the second scenario?
Okay, there was this one guy. He was basically a pro manager. He did like no work himself. He had no idea what the heck was actually going on. But anytime like someone gave him something to do, he would call me and be like, "Can you do this?" And then after I did it, he would email whoever and be like, "Hey, I did this." And just at all times was doing absolutely nothing. And he was like the lead of this like little pod thing we had.
Mm-hmm.
He knew nothing and would always call me basically to be like, hey, what is this? And I have to be like, it's this, like, whatever, whatever. And then he would like take it and run with it. And somehow like became a very like lead person on this
Mm-hmm.
project. And it's just like, well, that's all me, but sure.
The meme that's like coming into my mind is like, oh, when you girl bossed too hard, you girl boss too close to the set, and now you have to like run this entire team, but you actually just didn't know anything. My initial thoughts, annoying fly.
100%. It was like not malicious whatsoever. He just wanted to like look good himself. And it was
Yeah.
not like, I hate you, so I'm gonna like take this from you. And honestly, I didn't like really even care. At that time, I was like, yeah, here's the answer. Do with it whatever the fuck you want. I don't even want to be here. And honestly, the most annoying part is like randomly he would like just teams call me. No, like no message before of like, hey, are you free? You just teams call me at all times. I'm like, I don't want to talk to you. Just like ping me and I'll tell you the
Yeah.
answer. We don't need to get on this call. No one should be cold calling like that.
I wonder if he's still around because he just like in those environments you just have to keep leveling up.
Yeah, you have to. I actually think he's not. I think he like left to start his own thing. And I'm like, this is good for you, dude. You be free.
He
I
was
think he was like so trapped by the corporate mindset of like I must move forward when you're like not really one he didn't care enough And two, he was not qualified, but he had like just faked it enough.
Mm-hmm.
So wishing him the best.
Fake it till you make it.
For sure.
All right. I have three that come into mind. So
Okay.
I'm not gonna go into order. I don't know how I came up with this order actually.
Okay. Yeah, that's
So
fair.
the first one is from my last job where it was a much smaller startup, and everyone basically had their own job. Like everyone was hired to do like something very specific, but because we're so
Mm-hmm.
small, we just work cross functionally a lot across different areas. And so
Yeah.
you may be like working through a scenario that you're not super familiar with, or it's kind of expected that, you know, pitch in when it's necessary because we were so small,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not like we can have like a subject matter expertise to cover like
Yeah.
every single thing.
It's
This
very scrappy
woman,
startup
yeah,
vibes.
yeah. And you like, yes, this isn't like the most ideal way to like work in a really productive environment, but you kind of sign up for it in a way when you
Yeah.
join such a small startup.
Yeah. It's like
Um,
a it is what it is type of situation.
yeah. And this woman, first and foremost, like the thing that bothered me the most is that she would just make very small, snarky comments at me. And we were like fully
Mm-hmm.
remote, or she was a remote worker.
Mm-hmm.
She would like, one instance, like I had to work on this project that was like improving the process of something, and she was a stakeholder in it, and when we implemented it she was just like, you guys have created a monster. And I'm just like, but this was like an activity that's supposed to benefit like all of us, and sure it's like
Mm-hmm.
extra work for everyone, but it's not like super targeted, and it's not like I'm purposefully trying to create a monster. Like I'm purposefully trying to create something that's benefiting everyone.
Yeah. What I think everyone routinely forgets is like this is a job for us all. Like we don't actually personally
Yeah.
give a shit about any of this. Like I'm doing this because someone's like told me, or it's like kind of falls within my
Exactly.
responsibilities. Like I'm not doing this for fun. I'm not here for a good time.
And she would like use the winky face.
uh,
And there is no instance that you should be using the winky face in
at
a work
work.
environment that,
No.
and so if you're using it, it's coming off intentionally too as
Yeah,
like being snarky. So there's like this
definitely.
specific instance where like, so we use Asana to assign like tasks, but because like we had such high turnover, people were leaving like left and right. And so because I owned like our Asana boards, their like tasks would just get assigned to me once they leave. But
Mm,
once we found like a solution to kind of backfill certain tasks, like that person was responsible for continuing to complete the task.
yeah,
Anyways, she like would slack me and be like, did you do this task? Even though she knows it's not really my job. And like we kind of
yeah,
already discussed who would actually do it. And so I kind of
yeah,
reminded her, I was like, oh, just reach out to so and so. She'll be doing this like moving forward. And she'd be like, oh, you're still assigned to that task. I guess you didn't update it, winky face. Like, why not just say thank you and like move on?
yeah,
Why do
yeah,
you
yeah, yeah,
have to
yeah.
like say the specific thing with a winky face, knowing like, oh, haha, like you messed up?
Yeah. And also like it you would have checked that task anyway after to be like, hey, who's assigned to this? And then reassigned it yourself. Like you didn't need her to passive aggressively be like, why aren't you keeping this one task up to date? It's like, well, you're managing like 7,000 tasks. Like it's okay.
I honestly would rather her just flat out say like be more aggressive or be
True,
more
true.
like direct about what is not working for her, because she's
Yeah.
obviously like upset about something and like passive aggressively like passing that feedback back to me
Yeah,
in
yeah,
a
yeah, yeah.
very unnecessary way.
She's like creating this puzzle for you to solve, and you're just like, just tell me. She could have just said, hey,
Yeah.
can you reassign the task? It looks like it's still you.
Yeah.
Cool, I'll do it. Yeah.
Um, the one instance, do you remember this instance? Because I screenshotted everything and was sending it out to the world to witness.
I do remember I even told my friends that I was with at the time who were
Yes.
also really invested.
At this point, I have been working with this woman for months, and I think I have a really high tolerance for like debauchery and clownish activities in the work environment. But if you irk me in the wrong way, I will fucking punch back. When this was all going down, I was just like, that's it. Screenshot time. And
You
guys,
always need to document.
yeah, now that we have Slack or like Teams or whatever, why are people still being like this? Because that shit does not go away. Like,
No.
it just blows my mind that she would just be this way because I'm just screenshotting everything. But anyways, one of our coworkers was like drowning on her end, and this woman had like a dependent task from her. So I just decided to like step in and just do it. And this wasn't my like remit. Like this isn't something that I typically do, but I was just honestly trying to keep the ball rolling and helping a coworker as well. And so
you were practicing your entrepreneurial spirit.
Yes, I was, but obviously it's been forgotten by certain individuals. And first of all, this task, it wasn't like super complicated, but her asks were like very specific. And when I go into a task that I haven't done before, it's not like I'm just all willy-nilly like, oh, this is what I think it is. Like I looked in like previous tasks at the coworker that's responsible for it actually completed. Like I did my due diligence in like trying to make like as little friction as possible and like actually putting my best effort into it. And like this coworker did have a brief, the difficult coworker, she did have a brief on like what she asked for, but like it was not written clearly at all. Okay. Like I read it multiple times before I submitted it. And then I like checked the task as complete. And then within like 5 minutes, I get I get a Slack message. And she was just like, why did you mark this complete if my comment wasn't addressed? And I'm just like, I looked at it and I was like, I thought I actually did address her comments. Like, did I do something wrong? So I spent another like 15 minutes like digging through the like messiness of Asana to like figure out, did I do it right or did I do it wrong? And so I actually thought I did it right. And so I think she just didn't read what I wrote. And so in my snarkiness back, I screenshotted it and I sent it to her. And I was just like, if this doesn't address your comment, then you need to be more clear in your question.
Oh my God, I love that. Actually, at my first job, when one of my clients, she would always reply and be like, you didn't link this correctly. And I would just reply and highlight the links in the email. Like, see link here. And there's like 30 people on these emails. And I'm just like, you're not gonna best me today, bitch.
Exactly. And the thing is that I don't know, maybe you struggle with this. I definitely struggle with this, but sometimes we expect people to act the way that we would act, and that causes a lot of friction. But like I truly, if I was in her shoes, I would just be like, hey, I'm a little confused. Like I had this comment, was that addressed? Like there are just so many better ways to have asked this than why did you check this if my question wasn't addressed?
Yeah. You should. Oh, I personally always like approach things with, did I mess up?
Yeah.
And then let them figure out themselves that it was them.
Yeah.
Or it could be me, honestly. I don't know. But there's no need to be aggressive. Like we're just trying to get money to live right now.
And then she was like, I didn't see that. Sorry. Which I'm just like, yeah, I actually just don't think you really tried very hard to look into it. All right, what are your thoughts on this?
I think she's definitely just an office bully.
Yes.
Maybe
100%.
Like leaning a little bit toxic, but I think she's truly just a bully and she doesn't necessarily mean it personally. She just doesn't know how to handle anything correctly.
Yeah, like maybe she hasn't gotten enough feedback. I definitely sent these scenarios higher up. I was like, someone coach this girl. Okay, the second scenario, it's rather quick. It's from my consulting days. And I feel
Love
like this
that.
is actually a very common personality trait. But this person was a senior leader on our program, and this program was just known for being toxic. I think the clients were also very toxic, which sets like a really bad culture overall for the program. And his
Definitely.
client counterpart was also just probably the meanest person on the program, too. So it's like interesting that we put like our meanest person with like the meanest person on their program, probably intentionally.
Yeah.
If something wasn't working out on the consulting side, he would just like start pushing, like sending like really direct, somewhat mean messages just to get the ball rolling. And he was like known for that. But in like the specific scenario, okay, I've never cried at work, I think, except for this one time. Thank God
Love
we
that. I
were
used to cry daily.
remote. But like for like knowing how unfrequently that or infrequently
Yeah,
that I
yeah, yeah.
cry, like this is a big deal that I cried.
For sure.
But I was once again stepping in to help move along a situation that wasn't really necessarily my level of expertise. Like I didn't have my entire role was not suited for me, and they knew it too. No one, not even like the senior leaders, knew what the fuck to do in this like specific line of work that we apparently sold to the client, which somehow it seems very negligent. But basically, like no one wanted to touch this line of work, but they would just like give it to you, Chen. And so I've been working on this that I have no level of understanding of for like 6 months. And the clients were getting really frustrated. Like this was a highly dependent level of work that like fed into a bunch of different areas. And
Hmm.
essentially I like thought I was answering correctly for this one of his clients, and she was a keyboard warrior. Do you know what a keyboard warrior is? They're so
Um,
annoying.
Explain it just to make sure I'm
Basically,
aligned.
like when they're upset, they will send snarky, direct, like super direct,
Mm,
mean emails or like
yeah.
slacks. But like when you hop on the phone to talk with them, they're just like, oh, it wasn't a big deal. Like, I
Yeah,
just wanted to
yeah,
know this.
yeah.
And just like, okay, like, what is the point then? But like I received a keyboard warrior response from one of his clients. So I was trying to put out the fire and she was
Mhm.
mad because it was wrong. He responds to the thread, takes out all of our client contacts, leaves everyone on the consulting side, and was just like, Chen, you really don't know what you're doing and you need to stop.
Oh my
And he's
God.
like, you're being like, you're not like helping our situation. And just like, okay, if I wasn't going to respond, were you going to respond? Because no one
Yeah.
wanted to touch it. All of these really senior leaders were scared to touch this line of work. So I'm sorry that I had balls to like help address your client. It really wasn't, I wasn't intentionally trying to be like wrong about this.
Yeah, yeah.
And the fact that like you just replied, you purposely left the clients off, but like left everyone else on, which is like, what is the point of that? Like, could you have maybe talked to my manager about this or given me this feedback directly?
Totally. There was no need to leave everyone on the consulting side,
Yeah.
even if you wanted to send that email. I think a moral of the story for all of this has been do not do extra work because it's never going to be appreciated.
Never. And like the second that you keep doing it, people are going to expect more.
Totally. You're setting yourself up to
Be
be
taken
taken
advantage of.
advantage of. Yeah. Okay, I think hmm this one's tough. I think office bully. I feel like he's not annoying necessarily. Like it was intentional to some degree, but it was
Mm-hmm.
like business related.
Yeah. When you have like a reputation, he knows he has a reputation for it.
Yeah.
Everyone knows he has a reputation for it. But he, in general, like when you speak to him 101, just outside of work, is a very
Hmm.
lovely man. And when I left the company, he like sent me a personal note. He was like, you were so amazing. And I know you'll do well in your next job. He knows I'm smart.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So like when
He just
he's
likes to be a bitch
mean,
sometimes.
yeah, because that's what's worked for him in the
Yeah.
past. And so he's just going to continue doing it until it doesn't work for him. My last one, he's so funny to talk about because the situation is just so like WTF.
Mm-hmm.
in the most like weirdest ways. So this comes back to my startup experience, and I already knew this guy was giving me the wrong vibe since I interviewed with him. Like in our interview, he was going to push me a little bit because my like direct or my hiring manager kind of warned me about it. She's like, he might give you like some tough questions. That's just how he is. But in the like interview, he just kept on like hounding on like certain topics that you can, when you interview someone, you kind of just know like they're not going in the right direction. Like
Yeah.
I've been in interviews where like I am actually bombing it, and the interviewer just kind of knows when to move on and
Yeah.
when to like not. And he was just like, he just kept on going for the fun of it. I don't know.
God.
But I left that interview and basically cried. I was just like, I don't know if I want to work at this company. Like it just left such a sour
Yeah.
taste in my mouth. And it
Mm-hmm.
was just unnecessary. I mean, obviously, I ended up joining the company. Maybe this was the first red flag that I shouldn't have ignored, but definitely ignored at the time. And I joined. And I joined remotely. But when I moved to the Bay Area, like my first day of like meeting some of the team members there, he was there. And you know how like when you first work remotely, you don't know what like the height that everyone is at. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of like the first thing that you kind of pick
Yeah.
up on when you
Yeah.
see
Yeah.
them.
100%.
So when he sees me, he's like, "Oh, hey, you Chen, nice to meet you." I was like, "Hey, nice to meet you." He turns to my manager and he's like, "She's taller than I thought she would be." Which, like, what? Like, what about my personality gives you the direction that I would be short?
I feel like that's like it's a fine comment to make. It's like really whatever.
Yeah.
But like he didn't need to say it to your manager. He could have just been like, "Oh, you're taller than I thought you were."
Yeah. Like, why not tell it to me? And
Yeah.
also, he and I are basically the same height. So I don't know if it was just his insecurities coming out. And I don't know, he thought he would be taller than me. I'm also just like a very normal height. I'm five
Yeah, yeah,
four.
yeah,
Also, my
yeah.
manager is 5'4". And so, like, what is the purpose of telling her this?
Yeah. People thought I was taller than they thought I was too, but I think it's because I sit really low in my chair.
Anyways, he did this thing that I call passive exclusivity. I don't know. Maybe I'll coin this term. I'll go viral
Okay.
for it. But over a span of like the year and a half that I worked with him, we were on Slack and he would join. We would be in the same Slack channels. We wouldn't work super directly with one another, but we would be in the same Slack channels that are more for like office culture stuff, like a
Mm-hmm.
food one or a like random one or just like fun stuff, basically fun
Yeah,
stuff to
yeah,
get people talking. He would literally not interact with anything that I either posted or commented on, but he would be all over everyone else's. Like, it's like as if I just did not exist.
That's actually so funny.
It's so funny because it's just like, why? Actually, why?
That's like when you like want to be aggressive to someone, but like
Yeah.
you're like, I'm just gonna not like their comment.
But like if we were in person, he would actually just say hi to me. But I could just tell that he didn't like me because
Yeah,
he
yeah,
would
yeah.
just comment on everyone's except for mine.
That was his way of like enacting some revenge on you without it being like too much.
Yeah, but like what's mind-boggling to me is because we don't work really directly with one another, like I don't understand why you don't like me because we truly just like don't work together. So I am
Yeah.
actually just very harmless to you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But it seems like he just never liked me from the get-go. Um, but also just like maybe something more outright is that if I did have to ask him something, I hated slacking him. I hated slacking him. I hated asking him anything because he would be literally the most unhelpful person ever.
Mm-hmm.
Like almost intentionally unhelpful. I remember specifically like I had asked him for an update on something and he had switched roles and I didn't know. It was like not
Yeah.
told to like the greater company. Um, and actually like his boss, like the director of technology is the one that's like kind of taking over his job. And so I was like, hey, do you have an update on this? And he's like, I don't know. Why are you asking me? I'm just like, I thought you were the one working on it. And he's like, that should be Justin thing. Um, and so I like asked his boss, and he's like, oh yeah, sorry, I don't have an update. FYI, I don't know if you know this, but this guy is no longer like working in this department. Which like can't you just like have told me this?
Yeah,
Why did you have to be
yeah.
like,
Hey, sorry, I'm not working on this anymore. This person is. Ask them. That's literally all you have to do.
or to ask him like, hey, do you have this information? He'd just be like, no. Like, no,
Ugh.
let me try to help
Thanks.
you, direct you to the right place.
Yeah. Okay, I think he is. Oh, this one's hard. I feel like he's not an
Yeah.
office bully. He's not an annoying fly. He's like kind of somewhere in the middle where like he's doing it purposefully, but it's not really like that egregious. It's just like, why? And maybe a little mean. I don't know. I guess maybe I would say he's solidly in the middle. I can't choose.
I would actually say he's toxic AF.
Really?
Yeah. Really, in a way that, like, I literally have not done anything work related for you to act
Yeah.
this way. And so I think it is personal.
Okay, fair.
And
That's true.
I also like the reason why I kind of like brought up the height like his height, and also
Uh-huh.
like, I don't think I mentioned this, but he's also Asian. I think Asian guys sometimes have beef with like Asian girls in the workplace where they might
Interesting.
feel a little bit more competitive. That is just like the vibe that I was getting from him, because I cannot pinpoint a one exact reason why he just didn't want to interact with me, or like why he was just being passively exclusive with me, because we just don't
Yeah.
work together.
Interesting. I feel like brown people are opposite in that we really bond over being brown, and then we're always like just trying to help each other in a way. Not just trying to help
As
each
it
other, but
should be.
really like buddy immediately just because we're both like brown of some sort.
Yeah, as it should be. But like, I just feel like he was on this weird power trip with me for no
Yeah.
reason, because we don't even work together.
Yeah. Okay, fair. Okay, yeah. I think because it was like not work related at all, he was just mean and insecure.
All right. So those are our scenarios. Obviously, in my third job right now, I haven't encountered any annoying coworkers just yet, but I'm sure they're around.
They're lurking. They just haven't come out yet.
They're hibernating. It's been cold.
Yeah.
Okay. Any common themes that you've noticed amongst like our situations?
Weirdly, I feel like it's very male heavy. Mine are pretty much all male.
I was thinking this too, like, are males more common in or more susceptible in becoming a toxic coworker for females? Like, obviously, this is from our
Mm,
female perspective
yeah.
too. They
Yeah.
are in number, I think, but the situations with females just bother me more.
Yeah. I think they bother us more because it's like, well, you should like me
Why?
more. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like we should be helping each other. I think what I've been really lucky with throughout my three jobs is that most of the time the women are like very supportive. I am on a very heavy girls team right now and I fucking love it.
Me too.
And I think it's just way more fun and they're way nicer and we just understand each other in a different way.
Yeah. So when there is like a bad egg, it's just like, why?
Yeah, it just like irks you a
Did you
little bit
not get
more.
the
Just like
memo?
get
The
with the
memo?
program. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, that's true. I do feel like more strongly when it is a female because I'm just like, why? This is annoying.
Um, do you have any tips or tricks for how to deal with toxic coworkers?
Oh my God. No, I've never successfully. Like I just let it happen to me, honestly, and then I remove myself somehow. That's my way of handling it. I will escalate, and if whoever's supposed to be helping me is not, I will just be like, I'm out of here. I
Yeah.
have absolutely no qualms with leaving a job.
I think my recommendations was like, now that a lot of things are documented and Slack
Oh yes,
exists or like group chats, like
should
start
always be.
documenting
Yeah.
things like as a, my friend called it CYA, cover your ass
Yeah.
aspect, because if they are toxic AF and it's malicious, like you never know what they're going to pull out of their ass.
Oh, for
So
sure. Even at my first job, when all that shit was going down, I would like take pictures of the whiteboard. Like that's how
mhm.
intensely I was documenting literally everything.
Don't be afraid to report people up to HR. Like, obviously, HR is not on your side. They're not on your side.
No.
They're not on the side of the other person either. They're on the company side.
Yeah. Which kind of ends up being on the side of the other person, I feel like. At least in my situations, because the other people were much higher up.
I think like being able to avoid the situation has been really helpful, especially it's been
Yeah.
helpful in a remote environment too, because you know
Oh,
how sometimes like our
100%.
emotion is like written all over our face.
Yeah.
But like in a lot of instances, I'll just completely ignore what they say
Yeah.
because they're just trying to get you riled up. And you're
Yeah.
just like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm going to pretend you just didn't say that.
I'll just delete the message off my Slack.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for listening. You can follow us on all social media at Clown Vibes Podcast or email us at clownvibespodcast@gmail.com.
And if you enjoy our show and want to support us, please like, subscribe, and give us a rating and review. That's it for today. Bye,
Bye,
clowns.
clowns.